What's up? It's Andy Grammer with Jag.
Hi, this is Carly Rae Jepsen, and you're listening to Jag.
Hey everybody, it's Joe Jonas hanging with Jag.
This is Heather Knox, Playboy's Miss January 2012, with the hottest Jag I've ever seen.
It's B.O.B. checking in with my homie Jag. So much swag with my homie Jag.
It's the Jag Show Podcast.
Welcome to another 5-Minute Friday version of the Jag Show Podcast. On Wednesday night, my wife and I watched the Beverly Hills 90210 reboot. It was kind of funny. We came at it from opposite perspectives, where she had been a regular watcher of the show and I really never had watched the show. And I think whenever you're providing content to an audience, the two main rules, whether it's a TV show, a podcast, or anything else, are number one, know your audience, and number two, KISS, keep it simple, stupid. Now that might be a little abrasive to hear, but the idea is you don't want to overcomplicate things. You want something as easily digestible as possible. The analogy that my old boss in Vermont made, one of my early mentors, was the Walmart analogy. We were going over the tape of one of my radio shows one day, and I made a joke that was kind of highbrow, and he stopped the tape, and he looked at me and said, "Let me ask you a question. You think people walking into the Walmart are going to get that joke?" And I said, "Well, no, probably not. Why?" He said, "Well, then don't make the joke. This is top 40 radio. Walmart, Walmart, Walmart. If people walking into Walmart aren't going to get the joke, don't make it. There's no better way to turn people away than to make a joke that they're not going to get. So again, keep it simple, stupid." So the 90210 reboot was interesting because it did a really good job with the first rule of knowing your audience. There were a lot of callbacks to the old show, as my wife explained to me. There was Tori Spelling's prom dress. There was her being drunk, which she was in the prom episode, and some really nice tributes, of course, to the late Luke Perry. There were definitely moments where my wife's eyes kind of lit up and she was like, "Oh, I see what they did there. Okay, that was a reference to such and such from 20, 30 years ago. Yeah, 30 years ago. Wow. So a good job on know your audience. But as far as keeping it simple, this is where they lost a lot of people. And I did see a lot of negative feedback here online about this, and including every girl I went to high school with kind of commented on my Facebook post about it. So the idea behind the show is that the reboot isn't the characters they played, it's the actual actors themselves. Ian Ziering, Jason Priestley, Tori Spelling, Jenny Garth, etc. And it kind of took a little while for my wife and I to figure this out. In fact, here's a comment that I got from a friend of mine who lives in Vancouver where the show is being filmed. She said that a friend of hers is playing Shannon Doherty's double when she's not around. This is my friend Joanne's comment. "The show is filmed here in Vancouver, and my friend is Shannon's stand-in here, and she had to explain it to me, which she said, quote, 'It's a heightened reality kind of idea. The actors are all playing themselves, but the storylines are sometimes fictitious and others are based on truth,' end quote." That is a really hard nugget to digest. Once I read that after watching the show, it made a little bit more sense that the plot lines are somewhat based in reality, but not totally. For example, you had Brian Austin Green married to a pop star who's more popular than him. In real life, of course, he's married to Megan Fox. Tori Spelling being a train wreck in general. Jason Priestley being able to charm his way out of anything because he's basically Jason Priestley. Jenny Garth having trouble in her love life. And the struggle of them being their own people versus the characters they played in this iconic TV show. There was a scene, spoiler alert, probably should have said that earlier, where Jenny kind of wants to reaffirm her ability to get the guy, so she's talking to a nice looking gentleman at the pool in Las Vegas, and things are about to escalate. They're about to go somewhere more private, and rather than Jenny, he addresses her as Kelly, the character from the show, and game over. She walks away, nothing happens. So you've got this, again, this term is heightened reality. I kind of call it pseudo-reality, where the plot lines are loosely based on what's going on in these actors' lives. And then there's a scene toward the end of the episode where some craziness happens and they're all on a private plane together and people get upset and they start arguing and insulting each other, which, of course, that works in a teen drama, but really, it seemed kind of contrived to me. So the main idea, once again, is they did a great job of knowing their audience and playing to their audience, but they did not do such a good job of keeping it simple and easy to understand. How does this relate to a podcast? The podcast that you're putting together? Very simple. Same two rules. Know who you're talking to. Are you doing a podcast about basket weaving? Are you doing a podcast about Dungeons and Dragons? Are you doing a podcast about divorce, like one of my clients? Know your audience that you're speaking to and always, always, always keep them in mind. There's an old trick at radio stations I worked at where we'd have a cardboard cutout of, for example, Lindsay Lohan in the studio. That at the time was the audience that we're talking to, 21-year-old female. Never forget who you are talking to. And again, if your podcast is a vanity project, you can do whatever you want. But if you want your podcast to be successful and gain audience and gain traction and have people share it and have people tell their friends about it, that's the best way to spread word of mouth about podcasts is old-fashioned word of mouth and social media. Have a podcast that is easily digestible. Have a show that people can understand who you're talking to and what you're doing. Because if it's hard to digest and it's hard to understand, people are not going to stick around. Cannot hammer these 2 points enough. Know your audience, keep it simple. Thanks for checking out this week's 5-Minute Friday episode of the Jag Show podcast. Again, I will be in Orlando this coming week for Podcast Movement. It is by far the biggest and most outstanding podcast convention out there. Again, cannot recommend this conference enough. Thanks as always for checking out the Jag Show podcast. And until next time, later.